Hello. Good afternoon, everybody. Let me introduce myself. I'm Ramesh from Vishu International. I have been training TOEFL and IELTS students for the past 1.5 decades. And today's subject is which one to take, TOEFL or IELTS. So I'll walk you through some of the important information in both the exams. And of course, I will be ready for the QA after half hour. So let's start with the TOEFL exam. TOEFL is an abbreviation for Test of English as Foreign Language. Now, the test is taken by students who want to pursue education in American universities. Now, let me be very clear. The test is a test of English, TOE, the stand for Test of English. Now, FL means foreign language. Now, who will take this? Those students whose mother tongue is not English, but who must have pursued education in English medium and want to pursue either undergraduation or graduation in American universities. And naturally, the universities would want to evaluate your caliber in English. Now, to prove your caliber to the American universities, you will submit this score. I hope everybody understood now. The objective of TOEFL is to give a picture to the American universities as to what is your caliber in English language is. Okay? Now let's try to look into different sections of TOEFL. As you know, any language test evaluates all the skills of language: reading, listening, speaking, and writing. All these skills are tested in a single day. And of course, all these tests are taken on computer. All these tests are taken on computer. So this is called computer-based test. And of course, since the test is basically conducted 30 to 40 times in a year, you have to register this. You have to go to TOEFL.org. You have to register for the test. And of course, you will be receiving a confirmation. And then on the day of confirmation, on the day of the test, you'll have to go to the examination center. And of course, it is taken on computer. Now the results will be given in 3 to 4 weeks. Of course, once you get the score sheet, you will be sending to different universities. And that's how universities evaluate your caliber in English language. And then that's how they offer you the admission. Now, let's try to look into different tasks in TOEFL IBT. So, as I told you earlier, the test evaluates all the four skills of the language: reading, listening, speaking, and writing. in that order. Reading will be the first section, listening will be the second section. Of course, there is an optional break of 5 minutes, and then speaking, that's followed by the last section, writing. Now you have to be very careful. The test is taken on computer and it's a time-based test. So if you don't answer all the questions within the stipulated time, it simply snaps off and go to the next section. Now each skill is evaluated on a scale of 0 to 30, and of course a cumulative score of 0 to 120 is also calculated. You might be interested as to why they do this. Some universities look for a total score of 90 plus or 100 plus. Some universities, on the other hand, usually look for an average score of 20 to 25 in each skill. Now let's be very careful here. The test is taken in one single day under 4 hours. And the test objective is to evaluate the caliber of English, usually from a test taker whose mother tongue is not English, but who must have pursued English as a medium of instruction and who wants to pursue education in American universities. There are more than 2,000 universities in America. And again, based on this score, the universities offer admission to the candidates. Now, let's try to be very careful. All the 4 sections have the objective of reviewing each skill. Now, let us be very careful. Some people are very good in reading. Some people are very good in writing. They may not be good in listening or speaking. But you should be taking all, and the test evaluates your ability in all the skills. Now, what is the uniqueness of TOEFL? Now, if you know, TOEFL was started by ETS, Education Testing Services, in the year 1962. Nearly after half a century, the test is still the same. Perhaps few changes took place, and the present IBT stands for Internet-Based Test, and this was started in 2006, and ever since, every year, more than 500,000 people take this test. Let's be very careful. TOEFL is an academic-based test. That means people who want to pursue academic courses exclusively in American universities take it. Now, when it comes to academic, you naturally expect a lot of academic content. The test evaluates your English skills, all right, but the test is based on academic-based reading passages or speeches, and at the same time, it's not only going to test your individual skills, but also the ability to integrate different skills. Now let me explain what is this integration. You will be made to read, you will be made to listen. However, sometimes you will be made to read something, listen to a speech, and then you will be asked to write the answer for a question. Sometimes you will be made to read a written matter, listen to a speech, and then you will be made to speak. Sometimes you will be made to listen and speak. So that is the most important aspect of TOEFL IBT. It's a test based on your ability to integrate different sections, different skills. And that is the reason more and more American universities depend on ETS, TOEFL, and the scores provide a clear caliber of the test taker. Now let's be very careful here. If you are looking for admission to the top universities, the likes of Stanford, Harvard, Columbia, Carnegie Mellon, obviously you're expected to get good score. For example, the world top university, Harvard, expects 108 out of 120. And at the same time, this is the score, the least score that Harvard expects. That means anything less than that, Harvard can reject the application. So let's be very careful here. A good TOEFL score is also always is going to help you to identify which university you probably might get. Not only that, nowadays TOEFL score is also identified by many universities as the criteria for, is one of the criteria for offering different scholarships, waivers, research assistantships or teaching assistantships. At the same time, TOEFL itself is giving scholarships. For example, ETS, the organization which conducts TOEFL, offers anywhere between $5,000 to $10,000 scholarships. So if the students are really interested, they can actually avail all these opportunities. So much for the background of the TOEFL. Now let's go to these different sections. As I told you earlier, TOEFL is taken on computer. Now let's try to look into the reading section. We discussed reading is the largest section. Obviously you do have 3 to 4 essays which you will be reading on a split screen such as this, what I'm showing on the screen now. Now obviously the computer monitor, the computer screen will be split into 2 parts. Towards the right there is an essay, and towards the left you can see the question. The essay will always be somewhere around 800 to 1200 words. Moreover, the content will be taken from academic context. That means there is a possibility that these essays might come from science, humanities, history, American history or world history, or the combination of any of them. So there is no hard and fast rule that the subject should be from this particular thing. However, all the essays are timed. As a matter of fact, you can see on the board 40 questions are there. Traditionally, you'll be getting 3 or 4 essays with 40 or 50 questions following each essay. Obviously, there is no necessity for you to answer all the questions. If you don't know a question, you can skip it and go to the next one, come back, and at any point in time, if you want to actually come back to the previous question, you can do so. You can do so. And of course, all the questions are objective. And at the same time, there's always a possibility that some of the questions expect you to, insert some phrases, or sometimes there is a possibility that some statements are dragged and dropped in a box. Whatever. The reading section objective is to test your ability to read written matter, understand it, interpret it, and of course express the interpretation by taking the answers, right answers for the question. Okay, right answers for the questions. Now, reading is given a lot of importance in TOEFL. Let's not forget, any student who tries to pursue education in American universities, he or she reads 800 to 900 pages in 1 week. Reading plays a vital role. Okay, reading plays a vital role. Right. And now let's go to the next one, listening. Now let me be very careful. Why TOEFL tests your listening skills? Many times there are misconceptions. TOEFL tests your listening skills and it makes you listen to conversation speeches in American accent. That's not right. Most of the listening, whether it is a speech or conversation, they are neutral accents. That means anybody can understand. And at the same time, the objective of listening is to make you listen to audio. Usually a speech will be similar to a lecture that you might hear. And a conversation, majority of the time, will have two participants, and the subject of the conversation will always be academically oriented. Now, any conversation or speech will be followed by 5 to 6 questions, which review your ability to listen, comprehend, and of course express that understanding by taking the right answers. Generally, you will be getting 2 conversations and 4 lectures, each followed by 5 to 6 questions. Thereby, you will be made to answer 34 questions under a period of 40 minutes. Of course, if you include the audio time, it would be 60 minutes. Now let's be very careful here. Listening section should not pose a problem for the people who are habituated to listening TV programs or listening radio programs. However, it would be beneficial if you work hard and if you are able to understand, I think that would be really great. Now let's go to the next few questions, few sections, speaking and writing. Now let us be very careful here. Why writing and why speaking? Any student is expected to speak either to his fellow classmates or to the professors, and that is how he can express his ideas. Now when it comes to speaking, the most important aspect obviously is to make yourself understood. The speaking is actually divided into 3 types of questions: speaking independent topics and speaking integrated topics. In independent topic, you'll be made to answer familiar topics. For example, I have here on the screen, you can see a simple topic. Some students study for classes individually, others study in groups. Which method of studying do you think is better for students and why? And again, you can expect the topics from all kinds of academic life, for example, and then your preferences. Some topics might ask you, what's your favorite hobby? And what's your favorite subject in high school? Or what's your favorite season? What's your favorite day of the week? Or what's your favorite time of the day? I believe that this topic should not be difficult. However, many times, especially Asian students, find it very difficult. If you will log into eds.org, the company's website, you will see 40% of the Asian students won't even open their mouth while they are answering speaking section. Now you understand why this section poses a lot of challenge. The biggest challenge is not the topic, but again, the time. The test taker is expected to speak within 60 seconds, that is 1 minute. And at the same time, the preparation time is less than 30 seconds. So, in other words, you blink your eyes, it's gone. So, within that window of time, if you can speak and make your ideas understood, I think that's the greatest advantage. Now, generally, the speaking test questions will appear this way. I think on the screen you can see that. The preparation time is 15 seconds, response time is 45 seconds. Please understand, the topic is not a big deal. Some students prefer to live in dormitories and some students live off campus. Which do you prefer and why? I don't really think any student finds it difficult to understand. However, the greatest challenge is prepare within 15 seconds and then speak for 45 seconds. Now be careful here. You should use up at least 40 seconds and you should speak minimum 8 to 10 sentences without grammar or pronunciation or any other redundant mistakes. Now let's be very careful here. When it comes to grammar, I mean fundamental grammar. You should make your sentences without any grammar mistakes. And again, don't worry, pronunciation, a little bit of mother tongue influence is bound to be there. You should not be bothered, especially test of English as a foreign language, test the foreigners whose mother tongue is English, not English, but who must have studied in English language. So don't worry, a little bit of mother tongue influence is natural. However, heavy mother tongue influence should always be looked into. For example, if you see Arabs like Middle East, you see Oriental like Japan, China, they do have their own mother tongue influence. But again, see to it that you speak in such a way that it is intelligible, it's understood. Remember, 4 different people are going to review your responses and they are going to rate your responses accordingly. And there is no necessity for prejudice. There's always a possibility that if you present your ideas in a clear manner, using up all the time, there is no necessity for you to wonder. I mean, anybody can get 30 for 30. However, there are some other speaking topics where you will be made to read a written matter, a speech follows or a conversation follows, and then there is a question which expects you to combine the information both in reading essay as well as audio, and then it will ask you to answer the question. These are objective. Now let us not make any mistake. Subjective questions do not need any pre-arranged idea. For example, there's always a possibility that you can take your position, explain your opinion, taking your example. There's no limit there. However, when it comes to integrated sections like speaking where you read and listen and then speak and listen and speak, you're expected to speak what has been given. So please try to understand here there are 6 topics from 3 important types, and again the maximum time is 60 seconds. Majority of the time it's the time, that limited time, that's going to pose a problem. Now let us see the writing section. Now let's be very careful here. Any writing section evaluates your written English, and when it comes to written, let me correct it, you got to type into the computer. People who do not have the ability to type correctly into the computer might find it a little difficult. So please practice typing into the computer. There is no long hand. Now when you type, you have to be very careful. You're going to type into a software that doesn't correct your grammar, spelling, punctuation mistakes. Okay? And at the same time, there is a possibility that you will have to integrate also. Now let's try to be very careful here. Writing expects you to explain your ideas in a clear manner. So let us be very careful. When you write, there are 2 essays. Under 20 minutes, you will write an integrated essay where you read, you listen, and then you write for a given question. And there is an independent task where you are going to listen. You are going to write for 30 minutes. Now let us be very careful here. When an integrated task comes, you get, I think you can see, I have a visual on the monitor. You can see an essay, and then the countdown starts. In 3 minutes, you are supposed to read, and then that will go. And you get to see a visual on the monitor, and then you can listen to a speech on the through the headphones. Now once you are done with the speech, you come back to the previous one. That means the essay remains there, and you get 20 minutes to type into the computer. You have to answer a question that expects you to integrate information given in the reading essay as well as the audio. You got to be very careful. This is objective. And of course, test 2 is subjective. And most of the test 2 topics are very easy. If you will see the monitor, there is a small topic. Some people prefer to eat at food stands or restaurants. Other people prefer to prepare and eat it food at home. Now the topic is not going to be problem. To a large extent, it will not pose a problem because we do know the topic. However, ability to type into the computer for 30 minutes and writing 250 words and 25 to 30 sentences, 4 to 5 paragraphs always demands that you should be intelligible. That means you should write in a very clear fashion. At the same time, you should not be committing grammar mistakes. Remember, you're going to be penalized for every grammar mistake that you commit. And of course, majority of the time, many people have this problem. In Microsoft Word, when you type, there is always help. But again, the writing software in TOEFL, it doesn't help you that. Whatever you type, it's going to take it. You can only cut and paste. Other than that, you can't enjoy any kind of facilities in the software. It will be there for 30 minutes and whatever you type, it's going to take it. And yes, as I told you earlier, independent topic is a topic where you are going to explain your own reasons. There's absolutely no pre-published data. There is no predefined answer for these talks. As long as you have reasons, you have illustrations, you can go ahead. So let's try to look into let's try to have a recap. So TOEFL is a test of English, and obviously it is evaluated on a scale of 0 to 120, and 4 sections are evaluated, 4 skills are evaluated: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. And of course, it's taken on computer. And the objective of TOEFL is to test a test taker's ability to pursue any kind of academic program, call it graduation or post-graduation, or doctoral or postdoctoral studies in American universities. And there are many advantages of TOEFL. Now, let's try to be very careful here. Many students have this doubt. What is the best one? Is it TOEFL or IELTS? As a matter of fact, International English Language Testing System is another language test. This is conducted by University of Cambridge. And of course, University of Cambridge is legendary. It's surprising that IELTS has been conducted for the last 90 years. In the beginning, it was ELT. It was conducted in the University of Cambridge as a one-year program. Later on in 1980, it became international. Right now, around 180 countries, IELTS is being conducted, and every year more than 500,000 people take the test. China has the maximum test takers. Nearly 150,000 students take it. That's followed by India, where 100,000 students take the test. IELTS basically is a test, is an English language test. But again, if you ask, what is the difference between TOEFL and IELTS? Well, there's not much difference. IELTS is a paper-based test. Let us be very careful here. When you take a paper-based test, it's just like any other test you take in our school. At the same time, the test is taken by both whose objective is to pursue education as well as immigration. There's a possibility that some of the students want to pursue education, higher education, especially in countries like Australia, New Zealand, UK, and some of the European cities. So IELTS is mandatory. Let me be very clear. When you want to study in Australia, New Zealand, UK, TOEFL is not valid. Read my lips. TOEFL is not valid in these countries. However, IELTS it's being accepted more than 1,500 universities in America. As a matter of fact, the top universities have considered IELTS as an alternative to TOEFL. So please try to check which American university you're applying to and see that whether IELTS is accepted. As I told you earlier, TOEFL without any problem is accepted in most of the American universities. But when it comes to IELTS, please understand, not all universities accept. However, when it comes to United Kingdom and Australian, New Zealand universities, yes, it's mandatory. I mean, it's compulsory, without which you can't pursue education. And at the same time, IELTS is still a paper-based test. And at the same time, there are two kinds of streams: general IELTS, academic IELTS. As I told you earlier, academic IELTS is basically taken by the students whose objective is to pursue studies. At the same time, general training is always taken by the students whose objective is to immigrate to countries like Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and to a certain extent UK or some European cities. Now, the more the score, the better. Now, let us be very careful here. Even IELTS evaluates the skills, all the skills, just like TOEFL, reading, listening, speaking, writing, and it evaluates on a scale of 0 to 9. Now, this is basically the most important aspect. What is this 0 to 9? If you remember, TOEFL is evaluated on a scale of 0 to 30 and a cumulative score of 0 to 120. But again, why IELTS is evaluated on a scale of 0 to 9 and an average of 0 to 9 is also calculated. Now, let's be very careful here. TOEFL is a system. Let's try to define it. It is International English Language Testing System. Now, when it comes to testing system, it broadly groups people into categories. For example, you can see the visual on the monitor, 9876543210. Now, this is how obviously IELTS is going to evaluate the test taker. 9 is expert user, 8 is very good user, 7 is good user, 6 is competent user. Of course, 5, 4, 3 are below par, modest user, limited user. Let me be very clear here. Every student who takes the test might be getting one of these scores. However, anybody who gets less than 6 may not be accepted by most of the universities in the world. And at the same time, some universities are very particular about the test taker, the applicant be good user. That means you should have 7. Now, let's be very careful. Statistics show that out of the 100,000 students from India, it's only 10,000 students who get above 7. So the ratio is 1 to 10. Now, let's be very careful. Why they get that way? Okay. Let's try to look into a little deeper. IELTS test has 4 skills, all right. However, all the skills will not be taken in a single day. Reading, listening, writing are taken in a single day. Speaking usually will be taken a few days before or a few days after, but not on the same day. Now, what is the difference, if you might ask? Reading is similar. You get 3 essays, 60 minutes, 40 questions. Listening is also similar. You get 4 sections. That means 2 conversations, 2 audios. And at the same time, 40 questions come from that. And writing, you have 2 tasks, 60 minutes time. You will be made to write 2 tasks, a 40-minute independent task and a 20-minute academic task. Of course, when it comes to speaking, you will be interviewed by an evaluator, and this is basically going to be within the chamber of the evaluator. At the same time, the total speaking will not be lost in more than 11 to 14 minutes. However, the greatest advantage of speaking obviously is evaluator will be patient with you and there is no time limit. The same thing goes for writing. You write it on a paper with pencil, and the same thing with reading. It's like reading your textbook. So, what is a IELTS academic reading? Now, as I told you, the essays will be similar to TOEFL's. However, you will have to read nearly 4,000 words under 60 minutes, and 40 questions should be answered. So it's very clear that this is going to be a challenge for time management. A seasoned reader will always be benefiting. Now, let's try to look into the most important criteria that is evaluated. Obviously, when it comes to writing, grammatical accuracy, lexical resources, and of course, ability to use different kinds of structures. That means the grammatic range and accuracy, all this is evaluated. Now, when it comes to IELTS, why people prefer or why not prefer? I mean, let me put it very clearly. IELTS is taken more than 50 times in a year, and there is absolutely no waiting time. That means in 2 weeks you can register for IELTS. The results also you can get it in 2 weeks, and perhaps that is the reason why many people prefer. The second most important aspect is whether it is TOEFL or IELTS, you can send the scores directly to 4 different universities. As you know, each university charges $50 to $100 to evaluate your application. Now, through TOEFL or IELTS, one can freely send the scores. That means you are saving. Another important thing in IELTS, there is no necessity. I mean, you can take it as many times as possible. There is absolutely no limit. And at the same time, the test is basically conducted in the same way as it was conducted decades ago. So, who will take IELTS and who will take TOEFL? We discussed it. TOEFL is exclusively a test for academic pursuits, whereas IELTS is both for academic as well as immigration purposes. And TOEFL is a computer-based test, whereas IELTS is exclusively paper-based test. So when IELTS is basically computer-based test, it allows more and more people to register. It's basically conducted throughout the year. As I told you earlier, you can take it easily. It will take very less time for registering and getting the results in no time. That is also another advantage. And of course, there is always a possibility that you can feel at home with IELTS. Okay. Now, let us try to be very careful. In India, IELTS is conducted by 2 agencies, British Council and IDP Australia. Many times it has been identified that people have the doubts which one to take, IDP Australia, British Council. Let me again tell you, there is absolutely no difference between IDP Australia and British Council, because the exam is conducted by Cambridge University. Whichever may be the examining agency, it should not be different. So please try to identify that. Cambridge University, IDP Australia and British Council combinedly conduct IELTS. If you will see the score part of IELTS, you'll see the logos of all the 3. Now, the TOEFL fee is $160, and even IELTS it's almost same. So remember, you're going to spend a fortune on TOEFL or IELTS. So it's better you prepare and write for a better score. So I will now leave it to the audience. If you have any questions, you can ask me. Okay. Any sample of pattern available? Well, I can say you can go to IELTS website, ielts.org, which will be rather, this is the official website. You can actually download lots of sample papers. Moreover, IELTS, Cambridge University itself has published 9 volumes. These books come with a title, Cambridge IELTS Volume 1, 2, 3, 4, something like that. So these books are very good, and I hope, I think these books are available everywhere. Why should take coaching in your institute only? That's a good question. Now let me be very careful here. What is training, my friend? Training is impossible to possible. So coaching has 3 important advantages. One, well, it prepares the student in a regular mode so that it won't be a burden. You take training every day so that you can take one by one. At the same time, second, who is going to teach you? For example, Vishu Academy, we've been in the teaching line for the last 3 decades. For example, take me for instance, I have been teaching IELTS for the last 1.5 decades. So one important thing is an experienced trainer will always help you. Well, the third one, majority of the time any training institute, in fact, in my institute, we train people something around 10 to 12 mock tests. Now, what are the mock tests? Whenever you try to take a mock test, it's like taking the real test. And the trainer will grade you, and he will give you where you are going wrong, and perhaps will help you hone your skills in that. And of course, please try to understand here, Vishu Academy Limited is a 3-decade-old company in the training, and what you get as part of the training is the expertise. Now please try to understand here, my friend, I want you to take training wherever it is necessary. That's going to put you on a scheduled pace, and definitely it's going to improve your score. That's my word. Any other question? Why should you take coaching in your institute? Okay, very well. Now let me add it very clearly. I think Mr. Venkat, why should you? I think that's a very good question. In Vishu Academy, most of the IELTS trainers are trained by actually British Council. That's called Train the Trainer. That's a particular certificate course which British Council gives. And again, this is a trainer's trainer. That means the trainer who trains the students is actually trained by British Council. You get to, transcend that information. And that's the reason Training Institute is always beneficial. Okay, any other question? Now, as I told you earlier, majority of the time, IELTS, if you are looking at statistics, definitely there is a concern. Out of 100,000 students, only 10,000 students get about 6.5. That means 90,000 students are going to get less than 6.5. Okay, so there is a possibility that you benefit. Okay, show answer questions. Okay, what is the question? Okay, any other question? Good afternoon, sir. Okay, Raj. Audio is not clear. Good afternoon. So I should take coaching. Any sample of what? Any relations, course, scholarships granted? Okay, I think that's a very good question, Mr. Pavitra. Any relation of scores with scholarships granted? Yeah. Now let me be very careful. Just now I mentioned it. When it comes to TOEFL, TOEFL itself offers scholarships for students who usually get good scores. I have had students getting 115 plus. Now these students were offered anywhere between $5,000 to $10,000 by TOEFL itself. In addition to that, most of the American universities offer waivers to these meritorious students. For example, let me quote one of my students. University of Minnesota offered 100% waiver to this student of mine, and he got 100% waiver. That means $35,000. He was completely exempted from paying. Moreover, he was offered a $1,200 per month teaching assistantship, and that takes the financial side of your stay in the college. So I think that would be really great, especially if students are looking for some financial help. I think TOEFL is going to make you realize that. Okay, so yeah, you're right. Scholarships definitely, TOEFL score or IELTS score definitely have a say in scholarship. That goes without saying. Okay. So I think some of them have asked the question. I have answered that, and I have typed it also.